Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, and today we're going to do an early preview of UFC Kansas City, Ian Garry versus Carlos Prates. And my friends, it's going down next Saturday at the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City, Missouri, a place known for some of the best barbecue on the planet, let alone the United States. I'm going to preview the UFC Kansas City card. Next week, guys, don't worry. Next week, I'm going to have a guest. We're going to do, what y'all are used to, formal, all of that, in-depth. But here, just my early thoughts, pre-tape thoughts, just on the matchups, just rattling off my memory. And then after that, after I'm done previewing the Carlos Prates versus Ian Garry fight card, then I'm going to recap UFC 314 as Alexander Volkanovski just made history and Paddy Pimblett beat the ever-loving you-know-what out of Michael Chandler. So without further ado, let's get down to business. So UFC Kansas City is going down next Saturday at the T-Mobile Center. And in the main event, we got Carlos Prates. He's 21-6, taking on Ian Machado Garry, who is 15-1. Now, currently, today, which is Wednesday, a week before fight week, they got it. Ian Garry minus 135. The comeback on Carlos Prates is plus 115. So already off the bat, seeing Carlos Prates as an underdog is interesting because, let's just historically look at the prices that we've had to pay on Carlos Prates, right? Against his very last fight against Neil Magny, minus 725. Against Li Jingliang, minus 370. Against Charles Radke, minus 250. Against Trevin Giles, minus 260. Against the Contender Series opponent, minus 260. So now for the first time ever inside the octagon, we're getting Carlos Prates at that underdog price. And what's interesting to me about that is that Ian Garry's very last fight against Shavkat Rakhmonov, right? Let's look at what the odds were going into that fight. So yeah, Shavkat was a minus 345 favorite, and Ian Garry was plus 275. So Ian Garry was expected to lose that fight, and he did better than people expected. But I also think that people are giving him a little bit too much credit off that loss, which tends to happen a lot. Someone performs admirably in a loss, then automatically everyone rushes to bet chalk on them their very next fight. But as far as how they match up, it is striker versus striker, but they got very different striking styles. Carlos Prates, the way he moves actually is kind of Pereira-esque, just the slight bend of the knees. He's super long, hands down, but his hands down are for a reason. You don't see the angles that the punches are coming from. And the guy is a KO artist through and through. He just has this magical ability of creating the knockout, finding the knockout. And I think that's one thing that I heard his teammate, Gian Silva, say last week, that, we don't believe in fighters' primes or oh, now is your time or this or that. They're like, nah, we create our time. We create our opportunities. And yeah, man. And I think Carlos Prates falls under the same boat. And it's good to see a guy who, is reaching upwards of 30 professional fights getting this main event. We're not, like I said, we're not dealing with no 5-0 Contender Series guy trying to fight some Ian Garry, you know what I mean? But with Ian Garry, so what separates him from Carlos Prates, Carlos Prates, he's often been compared to Anderson Silva, kind of the slow starts, makes his reads, and then he just kills guys in emphatic and almost in a beautiful fashion, right? But with Ian Garry, it's a little different. Ian Garry is more of a stifler, right? He's good at frustrating you. He's a mover. He's a point fighter. And oblique kicks to those kicks to the knees, which is the reason that Shavkat's out for so long. That was caused by Ian Garry. And I also want to give him credit. These last two fights against MVP and against Shavkat, man, he had some near rear naked chokes in both those fights, a couple little adjustments here and there, and he might get that. And, training with Charles DuBronx Oliveira and all the guys that shoot the box, that's only going to help Ian Garry develop that part of his game. And we have seen Carlos Prates be taken down, on that Contender Series fight against Mitch Ramirez. He was held down for about a minute. And also, I believe Trevin Giles had some success early. But the thing about it is, Shavkat was relentlessly trying to grapple Ian Garry, so he left a little opening where Ian was able to take his back, right? Whereas I'm not convinced Carlos is going to give him those same openings. And also, on that topic, in the MVP fight, I felt like MVP. So that fight was 1-1 going to the third round, right? And I felt like it all came down to one scramble where MVP, you either need to stay on top of Ian Garry or completely disengage and get right back into your striking range. And he he had a lapse of fight IQ, and Garry took it at the last minute, which props to him. He did what he had to do at the right time. But now these two are meeting, and man, I can't wait to give you all my official pick next week. Let's see where these odds end up. But I think it's a great matchup, and the UFC are very, very high on Carlos Prates. They think this guy's special. Apparently, I've been hearing Dana White talk about how like they talk about Carlos Prates often in their matchmaking meetings on Tuesdays. They think this guy, Dana said he reminds him of Anderson Silva. You don't just say that about any random guy. So yeah, I think it's an incredible matchup. I really do. So yeah, next week, when I break it down with a guest, I'll have a more passionate take. Because like y'all know, I do my research on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, that's when my show is, right? But here, just hooking y'all up with some little early thoughts, off the top of my head. So that's kind of what I'm thinking with that fight. I think that, yeah, Carlos has shown some vulnerabilities, with maybe being stalled out from time to time and maybe being a bit of a slow starter. But Ian's got some vulnerabilities too. What about that? Like people talk about how Trevin Giles was piecing up Carlos Prates in his UFC debut. But what about Jordan Williams piecing up Ian Garry in his UFC debut? So guys, this is all part of the learning lessons and the paying dues that you have to do to get to your first ever main event. Well, not for Prates, but I believe for Ian Garry. Was the Shafkat fight a main event or a co-main event? Let me double check that. Yeah, no, it was a co-main event. Okay, yeah. So this is Ian Garry's, I think, first main event. And then one last thing I want to say regarding that fight is the original matchup was Carlos Prates versus Jeff Neal. And just stylistically speaking, this is no disrespect to Jeff Neal, but I thought that was a nightmare matchup for Jeff Neal. I literally thought that Carlos Prates was going to cover that minus 400 and then some. I thought he was going to knock out Jeff Neal, like without a shadow of a doubt. Ian Garry's a little bit tougher to deal with because, he's got the height to match, but also he's not going to just like with Jeff Neal, he's like 5'9", so he needs to, rely on his footwork and his speed to close the distance and get inside on someone like Carlos, who's 6'2", 6'3". And that's going to leave a lot of openings. Whereas Ian Garry kind of, sticks and moves, runs away, point fight. So it's going to be a little harder to reach him. Not to mention he also has length too. So yeah, man, such an intriguing battle. I cannot wait for Ian Garry versus Carlos Prates. And in the co-main event, we got Anthony Lionheart Smith. He's 37-21. Holy shit, what a record. And again, he's one of those guys that we know of that he's had that many fights. Because for a fact, Anthony Smith is one of those guys that's got a lot of fights that aren't on his record. And and then he's taking on the Chinese light heavyweight prospect that's been running through guys. My boy Ming Yang Zhang. This guy's a devastating knockout artist. He has experience, and he's catching Smith at a great time. And I mean, as the odds indicate, minus 525 Ming Yang Zhang, plus 400 Anthony Smith. Now, granted, listen, Anthony Smith did set back a prospect in Vitor Petrino not too long ago. So I mean, from time to time, these vets and these legends will surprise you. But that being said, I do think it's Ming Yang Zhang's time. It doesn't take a genius to pick a minus 525. So David Onama and Giga Chikadze, that's an interesting one. Giga's 15-4, David Onama's 13-2, and they got it. Onama minus 185, the comeback on Giga Chikadze's plus 160. Yeah, this is interesting just because of where Giga's at in his current run, right? Because Giga and Calvin Kattar, they had some very similar things happen to them, right? Like for example, Calvin Kattar took that life-changing beating against Max Holloway, where Max literally set a significant strike record on his face. And Calvin was never the same ever again after that fight. But for some reason, he did win his bounce back fight against Giga Chikadze, and he put a pillar to post ass whooping on Chikadze, and now Chikadze has never come back the same. So it's like both Kattar and Chikadze took career altering beatings and they just haven't looked the same. And with David Onama, he's always had raw talent, athleticism, tools. It's just about, developing the right way. And I think he's been doing that. He's been in there in the tough fights now. He is a seasoned vet at this point, and I think he is ready to rise to the occasion. And I'm very concerned about the current state of Giga Chikadze. At one point, Giga was doing his thing in glory, coming to the UFC. That Giga kick, he was doing his thing, but fighters get surgeries, fighters take beatings in wars, they all add up, and this this sport eats you up and shits you out, and that's just the bottom line. This sport eats you up and spits you out. That's a more eloquent way of putting it. But yeah, I think Giga might be entering that realm now. Now, also on the card, we got a matchup between Michel Pereira, he's 31-12, taking on Abus Magomedov, who's 27-6. Currently, they got it. Michel Pereira minus 150. The comeback on Abus is plus 130. I don't think people need to be so low on Michel off the Fluffy fight. I think that Fluffy pushes the kind of weaponized cardio that we haven't seen, at least at middleweight, in a hot minute. We might see in the lower weight classes, the Marabs and guys like that, but yeah, we don't see that from too many middleweights. So that guy's pace, like breaking against him, and Michel, like even when he was dead tired, man, he was still like trying to hang in there. So I respect that a lot. And with Abus, he's obviously insanely dangerous, man. Look what he did as Dustin Stoltzfus. And I also like the fact that in that last fight against not Bruno Bulldog, but Bruno the Hulk Ferreira, that, listen, man, he was able to overcome some adversity. This Bruno Hulk guy, he hits hard, and he's got a big squeeze too. And the fact that it was a nice back and forth fight, we got to see Abus overcome some adversity and then go out there and finish someone like that. I thought that was very impressive. So yeah, this fight, as long as they don't show each other too much respect, I think there might be a lot of chaos in that matchup. So I'm looking forward to Michel Pereira and Abus Magomedov. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Randy Rude Boy Brown. He's 19-6, taking on Nicholas Dalby, who's 23-5-1. Currently, they got it. Randy Brown minus 220. The comeback on Nick Dalby is plus 185. Shout out to both of these, veterans, man. I don't want to call them OGs because at this point it's like, Chuck Liddell's an OG, right? Like, but these guys have been paying their dues for a long time, so you don't want to downplay it at all. But like, I love the Nick Dalby career resurgence. It's like he kicked a different gear in his conditioning, his pacing, and man, like that fight against Gabriel Bonfim, to take the ass whooping he did up front and then to come back and put it on him like that. And that's been a historical trend for Nick Dalby throughout his career. You remember that Darren Till fight. I mean, Darren Till's going out there, dropping him with uppercuts, doing the whole bit. And then Dalby gets a 10-8 third round. So like the Renat Fakardinov fight, if you slow down on Dalby, man, he will turn up on you. But the thing about Randy Brown is, man, I still think that despite the fact that Randy Brown has been in the UFC a long ass time, I still think he's getting better. I still think he's making improvements. And I still think not that we haven't scratched the surface, but we haven't seen the full potential, the finished product of Randy Brown, because he was literally one of those guys. Like I said, he had to learn on the job, right? He came into the UFC super young, super green. But I do think that what's the reach difference here? It's got to be something stupid. You know what I'm saying? So Randy Brown, I'm guessing he's got that 79-inch reach or so, 78-inch reach. Okay. What's my boy Dalby on? So Dalby got that 74-inch, so okay, a little 4.5, 5-inch reach advantage, something like that. That never hurt nobody, and plus the height advantage. But to me, it's not about height, reach, length. It's about, do you know how to use it, right? And Randy knows how to fight long. And I felt like in that first round against Brian Battle that Randy Brown looked incredible. Now, the reason I have my suspicions about why you slow down, and my reasoning is that I think Brian Battle is a weight bully. Now, guys, hear me out on what I think a weight bully is, because my definition of weight bully is different than other people's definition of weight bully. Other people's definitions of weight bullies are people that cut a ridiculous amount of weight to gain an advantage, right? But here's the distinction for me, guys. If you can make the weight class, as far as I'm concerned, you're not a weight bully. But when you're coming in, you know, when you're a much bigger guy for the weight class and you're consistently coming in overweight, that is weight bullying. And Brian Battle weight bullied in that Randy Brown fight, man. I mean, in the second and third rounds, you could really see the size difference draining Randy Brown. I just didn't think it was a fair fight. I thought Randy was actually the better fighter. In round one, when it was just skill for skill, I mean, Randy was tooling him, but then he got pinned up against the fence the next two rounds against the guy who missed weight, a weight bully. Nicholas Dalby's not a weight bully, but Nick Dalby, he can push a pace, especially late in fights. And we just need Randy not to slow down again. And I think Randy could keep this guy at the end of the jab and just do long man things, to do Jamaica man things to Nick Dalby. So I'm gonna go Randy Brown there. Now, also on the card, we got a rebooked fight between Ikram Aliskerov. He's 15-2, taking on Andre Muniz, who's 24-6. Currently, they got it Ikram minus 650. The comeback Andre Muniz is plus 475. I don't really have too many thoughts on this fight at the moment. Obviously, we know Ikram got the Dagestani style. He likes to let his hands go a little bit more than he does like to wrestle. And on the other side, with Andre Muniz, man, serious black belt. I mean, the guy tapped out Jacare. Yeah. I mean, I do favor Ikram because I think he can neutralize the style of Andre Muniz. It's just when you get odds like that on someone that's such a high level jiu-jitsu black belt, like a guy that tapped out Jacare, right? A guy that beat the Iron Turtle. And granted, I didn't even think he won that fight. I thought it was controversial. But the fact that, like here's what I'm trying to say. When you're a plus 4 whatever dog, plus 460 dog or whatever I saw that he is in this fight, I don't give a fuck if it's controversial. Get me to that split decision, right? So it'll be interesting to see, where the line goes and what people's takes are on that fight. And then we also had Matt Schnell, who's 16-9, taking on Jimmy the Brick Flick, who's 17-8. Currently, they got it. Matt Schnell minus 250. The comeback on Jimmy Flick is plus 210. Should we call up Cody Durden? Right now? He's probably busy, but let's call him up and see, because he fought both these motherfuckers. So I'm curious what he has to say about that. All right. I'm going to call this dude right now.
Yo, what up?
Cody, real quick. I'm on Half the Battle live, and I just got to the Matt Schnell Jimmy Flick fight. Give me a quick pick for that fight, dude.
Man, I gotta take Matt Schnell. Last fight on his contract, he retired. But man, I just think he can stop the takedowns and work his way to a TKO, maybe second round TKO. I don't think Jimmy Flick's fast enough. I don't think he's got enough tools, and I just see Matt Schnell finishing him on the feet.
Yeah, just gotta mind your P's and Q's, man, because you don't want another Matt Schnell double tap like you had him doing.
Yeah, I think he's gonna come with the right mindset and the winner's mindset, and not shoot, from way out of range.
Yeah, I got you, brother.
I think he needs to keep this fight on the feet, but we know Matt's good on the ground as well. But Jimmy Flick, I don't think he has the power, and I don't think the calf kick's going to be there for him. I just think Matt Schnell's boxing can win him this fight.
Who's got a better chin? Any opinion?
Yeah, no comment. I don't know.
Hey, Cody, I appreciate you, fam. Get back to it, man. I'll see you in Atlanta. All right, brother.
Hey, I hope Matt Schnell wins, but if he doesn't win and Jimmy Flick wins and stays in the UFC, I'm praying I get that rematch one day. I'm gonna fuck him up.
And I very much look forward to it. My man, you take care, brother.
It.
All right.
Bye.
See you, bro. You know, we just got to call up my boy Cody Durden. Fought both these guys, you know, Schnell and Flick. Got to get a little insight from him. So, you know, you love to see it. And then this next one, we got Evan Elder, who's 9-2, welcoming Ahmed Hassan Zada, who's 12-3, repping Afghanistan. You know, shout out to my boy CR, the great Bahadur Zada. I believe he was the first ever Afghani fighter in the UFC. And that guy had some devastating, vicious knockouts. Y'all got to check out his knockout of Paulo Tiago. It's only a 40-second fight. And oh my God, just thank me later is all I got to say. Chris Gutierrez taking on John Castaneda. You know, we talked about that fight already. It's more of like the volume of Castaneda versus the specialist low kicking style of Chris Gutierrez. I picked Gutierrez last time. We'll see where the odds are next week when it's fight time. But yeah, Damon Blackshear taking on Alatong Haley. Damon Blackshear 16-7-1. Alatong Haley 17-9-2. And they got this one, I'm sure. Yeah, minus 300 for Damon Blackshear. Yeah, listen, man, Damon's got a lot of tricky stuff on the ground, and if you got to compare just their athletic attributes, you can't. I mean, I was about to say Montel. Damon's on a different level there, and Damon's just so tricky on the ground, so seasoned, so experienced. And the thing about it is, if we're just going to talk about, you know, Damon potentially getting this fight to the mat and that's his path to victory, okay, but like, let's look at striking numbers. Damon landed more significant strikes against Mario Bautista, who's a top 15 guy, than Haile Alatang has landed in any fight. So, like, what I'm saying there is, if Damon wants to strike for 3 rounds with Alatang Haile, I think he can do it. The way I view Alatang Haile is he's just solid workman, journeyman, nothing special, but solid. Like, if you're not UFC level, he'll expose that, but he's not gonna put on any, you know, kind of performances that really blow you away or anything like that. It's going to be solid workman performances, but I think Damon Blackshear has a little bit something to deal with that. Now, this next one, I am so excited to talk about because Cameron Simon, you know, he's 9-2, repping South Africa. It's been a while since he's fought. You know, he's coming off that devastating loss to Peyton Talbot, or as we like to say in Brazil, my friends, Peyton Talbot. And he's welcoming Malcolm Wellmaker, who's 8-0 into the UFC. Now, I don't know if y'all know, but I'm sure you have if you listen to Half the Battle, but I'm very biased towards Malcolm Wellmaker. In fact, I called, you know, I used to do commentary for my local regional fight promotion called the NFC, and I commentated Malcolm Wellmaker's second ever amateur kickboxing fight where he had gloves and headgear on, and he like knocked the dude out with 16-ounce gloves and headgear on, bro. I was like, okay, this is a guy to watch. And they had even told me, like, hey, bro, like, don't interview anyone unless it's like the main event or the co-main event or some of the pros. And I was like, fuck that. I'm interviewing this kid right here, right now. He stood out ever since. When you got guys that are 135 pounds and they're rocking people with headgear and big gloves on, and you're seeing chicken dances from that, yeah, that stands out to me. Goes undefeated in his pro record all the way to Contender Series, gets a walk-off knockout. I mean, come on, man. And also, guys, make sure y'all check out my exclusive interview with Malcolm Wellmaker on my YouTube channel. Just hit the live tab, excuse me, and you'll see it there. So yeah, definitely check that out, because Malcolm, he's got an incredible personality. He's so charismatic, but he's got the fighting style to back it up. And he's someone to look out for. He's got that it factor, and I know Cameron Simon's back is up against the wall, so I'd love to see him do well. Just not next Saturday night because he's fighting my boy, you know. But let's go, Malcolm Womaker. So Jacqueline Amarine taking on Poliana Viana. See what those odds. I bet Jacqueline's a favorite there. Jacqueline, excuse me. Oh shit, is she a favorite? Minus 450. Goddamn. Yeah. Oh, you know, I think that Poliana Viana has been kind of falling off lately, getting into the coast play and all these things. And you know, ever since since Tiago Maeda beat up that dude and Pollyanna took credit for it, I think things have kind of gone downhill. No, I'm just kidding, but I just think Jacqueline Amarine's on a different, you know, trajectory. You know, for that reason, I'm probably going to pick her to win. Timmy Kawamba and Roberto Romero. Nice, evenly matched fight. They got it. Roberto Romero minus 130, Timmy Kawamba plus 100. This is one I'm going to have to go back and watch some tape on off memory. You know, I do remember that Romero came into the UFC and he actually dropped David Onama. But after that, when he dropped David Onama was like, oh, yeah? Oh, yeah, mother, you know? And then he goes on to drop Romero and give him a vet lesson in the next 3 rounds. And Timmy Kawamba, you know, his first UFC fight, he's in the wrong weight class. His next UFC fight, he was in the right weight class, but the dude was way bigger than him. I think that this is going to, hey, you get a full camp in your real weight class with a similarly experienced opponent. You can look at this as Timothy Kawamba's UFC debut. So that'll be interesting to look into as well. Jocelyn Edwards and Chelsea Chandler. So initially, I was surprised to see it. This is at 35s. That's what Tapology's got listed at. Is it not at 45s? Because Jocelyn, how many times did Jocelyn pull out of fights and miss weight at 35? She's just too big for 35s. And we know, I mean, holy shit. Look, you want to know how many weight misses we're talking about, my friends? All right. So she came in 137.5 against Jeon Kim. She came in at, she just missed by half a pound against Lucy Pudilova. I feel bad about that. And against Tamiris Vidal, she comes in 139. And dude, and that, but wait, there's more. Actually, no, there isn't more. For some reason, I thought one of her fights got canceled because she missed weight, but apparently that wasn't the case. And then with Chelsea Chandler, she's a big girl. Okay, we're talking 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. You know what I'm saying? Like for that weight class, that is a big girl. She's just kind of on the clumsy side. Take that back. She's I better cut that shit out. She's kind of on the clumsy side. And the thing about that too is that she's got her weight issues too, right? Like, so she came in at 137 for the Josiane Nunes fight. She came in at fucking 141 for the Yana Santos fight. So seeing this on Tapology listed at 35s, I was kind of surprised about that because I thought that let them both move up to 45s unless they completely got rid of that division. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. I think Jocelyn is more skilled for sure. I just think Chelsea Chandler's kind of like a brute, kind of like the antagonist from Matilda. That's how I view Chelsea Chandler, man, running straight into the wall and stuff. So yeah, I think Jocelyn Edwards is better. It's just from time to time, Jocelyn Edwards will end up on her back and like life alert, help, I've fallen and can't get up. And you just don't want that situation to arise here. Now, what's next to do is recap UFC 314. So, my friends, at UFC 314, Alexander Volkanovski did some very historic things. He made history. I mean, the guy, first ever UFC fighter to win a belt coming off back-to-back knockout losses. Not to mention, you know, for being 36 years old, going to turn 37 soon, and you're winning a belt at 45, it's like, damn, respect to the legend. Now, I actually picked Diego Lopez going into the fight, and I thought that he was going to be able to catch Volkanovski. And when he did, I thought he was going to close the show like he normally does. And I expected Volkanovski to, you know, be a little bit diminished based off coming off 2 vicious back-to-back knockout losses. And I was right about one thing, and I was wrong about another thing. You know, I was right about Volkanovski looking. I don't know what y'all thought, but people saying that's the vintage Volk. That was not the vintage Volk. But Diego Lopez had a really hard time pulling the trigger, which was the concerning part. Like, for example, like in that round where he drops Alexander Volkanovski, like you think, hey, Here's your chance to win your world title. Every single other guy you've hurt in the UFC, you've literally gone out there and got them and just closed the show right away. The Ortega fight was the only exception, but that's because like Ortega's, got the most insane Mexican chin you've ever seen. But like Ortega got knocked out like 2 or 3 different times in that fight. But usually, yeah, when Diego hurts you, his killer instinct is second to none. And in this fight, when he dropped Volkanovski, it was like he was chasing Volkanovski, but he wasn't throwing the requisite, follow-ups to get Volkanovski out of there. Like I was convinced in my analysis that when he hurts Volkanovski, he's going to close the show. And he did hurt Volkanovski. He got the only knockdown of this fight, but he was like gun shy. He was hesitant. He didn't pull the trigger enough, and that cost him. And listen, the kid's only been in the UFC less than 2 years. So hopefully this doesn't, destroy him mentally and confidence wise, and he can come back and challenge for gold down the line. And for Volkanovski, man, I mean, come on, bro. You're a fucking legend. To do what you just did, like that is very, very impressive. Very impressive. So not enough good things I can say about the great Volk. Is it Evloev next? Is it Lerone Murphy next? Is it Jean Silva next? I know Yair wants another crack, so let's see what they do. So Paddy Pimblett, or as we like to say in Brazil, Paddy Pimblett, man, he destroyed Michael Chandler. Like he outstruck him, I think 8-1, and just pillar to post ass whooping. Round 3, TKO to elbows. One of the best bets of the year too at -150. And yeah, it's bright skies for Paddy the Baddy. And I think that there's only 3 options of what you do with them. So I like the direction they've been taking him in, right? To get him into the top 15, Bobby Green. To get him into the top 10, Michael Chandler. Now, if we want to get him to the top 5, you have to put him in there with either one of these next 3 options. And you guys know exactly who those next 3 options are. Charles DuBronx Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, and Dustin Poirier. Because one thing that people don't understand, or at least they fail to realize, is that I'm not talking about Arman Sarukian and these guys that are truly on the come up, but these kind of guys like Dustin, Charles, Justin, Mateus Gamrot, guys, they're all 35 plus. Like they're all like I know it hurts to say this about legends and beloved fighters and guys that we think we think these legends will never die, but they're reaching that point where Paddy in 6 months from now could catch one of those guys at the right time. Paddy wasn't even -300 against Chandler. He looked -3,000. So it just shows the market hasn't caught up on him yet, because sometimes when guys have these huge personalities, always got the hair, he talks funny, whatever the case may be, which he's fucking hilarious, by the way. I really enjoy him, watching him talk or listening to him talk, but you're getting value on Paddy in these spots. And I'm very curious to see how Paddy does against one of the all-time legends, but kind of on their way out, like a Justin Gaethje, a Dustin Poirier, or a Charles Oliveira. So that's where you go. Now, Michael Chandler, who's the next prospect we want to feed you to? Ignacio Bahamondes. That's an option. And there's other options too. I could pull up the rankings, but bottom line is like, these killers, I'm gonna pull up the rankings. Listen, so these killers now in the lightweight division coming up. So what you do here is, so we're talking lightweight, right? So with Michael Chandler, I'm thinking, and y'all tell me what y'all think, but I like the Ignacio Bahamondes fight. I know he's scheduled to fight Fiziev, but so what? Go fight Fiziev, then go fight Michael Chandler, man. Like, it doesn't matter if Michael Chandler's 2-5 in the UFC. Like, you beat Michael Chandler, and that's going to elevate your stock. And also, another option for Michael Chandler is like Ludovic Klein. Ludovic Klein is on a fucking hot run right now. He's streaking. He's heating up. Give him the Chandler opportunity. Or you could do the winner or loser of Joel Alvarez and Benoit Saint-Denis against Michael Chandler. So lots of different ways you can go to match him up next. Now, Yair Rodriguez just schooled Patricio Pitbull. And, you know, on tape it was there, but sometimes you hold out hope that these legends are going to have, you know, they're going to shine bright in a big moment like that. And he just didn't. He just looked kind of shop warm. Yair so much faster, so much more dynamic, and was just a couple steps ahead all night. But I still think Patricio should get another fight in the UFC, of course. And I saw the people he was calling out. He was calling out like Diego Lopez. Is like, yo, Patricio, calm down, man. Like, I know you're the man outside the UFC, but now you're in the big show. So let's, you know, let's proceed with caution. I'm curious about how Patricio Pitbull versus Aljamain Sterling would go. The reason I say that is this. So Aljo's not much of a knockout threat. Aljo's not much of a danger on the feet. Where he's a danger is the backpacking and stuff like that, and the scrambles. And I've seen Pitbull scramble with AJ McKee. I've seen Pitbull scramble with Emmanuel Sanchez. Like I know Pitbull can grapple his ass off. So I think that's a pretty interesting matchup right there. So yeah, that's one I'd like to see. Now, Jean Silva destroyed Bryce Mitchell as promised by Jean Silva. Shout out to him, man. And God, he's so fun to watch. He's so physical and he's so creative and willing to try different stuff. And one of my favorite moments of that fight was when, so he's going after Bryce Mitchell and he notices Mauricio Hufi in the crowd. And he's like, he points at Mauricio. He's like, Mauricio, look. And then he throws a spinning heel kick at Bryce Mitchell's chin. And credit Bryce Mitchell for not going down to that. I was like, damn, that seemed pretty flush to me. The fact that he did not go down to that. Credit to your chin, Bryce Mitchell. But, you know, later on, ended up getting tuned up a bit. And you love to see when the grappler gets tapped out by the striker, especially with a, you know, with a ninja choke like that. I'm a huge fan of front chokes, especially ninja chokes. And it was a beautiful thing to see. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions. You know, I didn't want to get into this because, you know, on Half the Battle, I'm here to unite, not to divide. But I felt like I saw a lot of people saying that the reason people are, you know, speaking out against Bryce Mitchell or teaming up against him or siding with Gene Silva or this or that is that people were saying, you know, they were saying that people are attacking Bryce Mitchell for being a Christian man that's strong in his faith. And that was never how I viewed it. I fully respect, as long as you're a peaceful individual, you're not looking to harm anyone. I fully respect everyone's faith, man. So it was never about, oh, we can't let the strong Christian man express his views. Nah, bro. Especially coming from me, who's totally anti-woke and anti-cancel culture. Like, if y'all know me, I know I don't really tell you my political views, but if you've heard me talk, you probably kind of know my stance on certain things. But it wasn't about going out there and attacking this man for his religion. Of course not. Like, why would you do that? That would make you a piece of shit. It's the fact that Bryce Mitchell, you know, prior to the Emmett loss, Bryce Mitchell would say stuff that, yeah, maybe we don't agree with, but you're not. I want to be clear about what I say. It's not that, you know, with the flat earth stuff. It's not that, you know, it's like harmless when he's talking about that. We're like, you know, give him a pat on the back, like, yeah, okay, son, you know, like, yeah, cool, whatever. But when you start talking about World War II, you know, and that hits home for me because, you know, I had family members die in World War II. I know a lot of my friends' family members died in World War II. World War II is one of the bloodiest, most gruesome wars in the history of mankind. And to hear a guy like Bryce Mitchell say things like, you know, I'd like to go fishing with Hitler, or I would have loved to go fishing with Hitler. It's like, bro, I don't think you quite understand what you're saying right now. And then there was a little skit where they were like asking fighters if they could give themselves their own nicknames, what would it be? And Bryce is like white power. And it's like, guys, like, again, I'm not one of these weird fucking libs that gets offended. Guys, I grew up on Chappelle. I grew up on South Park. I grew up on Chris Rock, all the most offensive shit. So it ain't about that he said something a little controversial. it's like what he said, like, you know, do you guys know that episode of Chappelle, you know, where he dresses up as like a KKK guy? Dave Chappelle does, you know, for those that don't know who Dave Chappelle is, he's a black comedian, right? And he dresses up and he's a blind KKK guy, so he doesn't know he's black. And yeah, man. And you know, when he's going like white power, like in the Dave Chappelle show, okay, that's funny. Like it's this is comedy, but like when you're dead serious that you would make your nickname White Power, and then you got all these people defending you, like, bro, what? Like how to, you know, how disconnected is our society, man? Like, and if you think that Hitler only wanted to kill Jews, I got a beachfront property to sell you in Atlanta, Georgia, my friend, because he was a genocidal maniac that wanted to kill everyone that wasn't part of the Aryan race. And it gets a lot deeper than that. But the bottom line is, yeah, a basic history class in high school, a basic high school history class in World War II will easily debunk the bullshit that Bryce Mitchell was spreading. And he had to pay for those words, man. You know, it seemed like there was hate in his heart. And Gian Silva did make him pay. And I love to see every second of it. And now, as far as Gene Silva's, you know, potential, man, I think he can go all the way to the top. His striking is so creative. He's athletic. I love the footwork. I love his willingness to try new things. What about that submission game tapping out Bryce Mitchell? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think this kid's special, and I look forward to seeing what they do next with him. You know, I know my boy Vinicius Lockdog, who's down a weight class. He wanted to fight like Rob Font, which I love. So who's like the Rob Font of featherweight that we could see Gene Silva kind of usher out the rankings? So when I'm looking at it right now, you know, there's Brian Ortega. Oh my God, could you imagine what Gene Silva would do to Brian Ortega? Dude, I'm gonna keep it a buck with y'all. This fight probably doesn't happen, but are you telling me that Gene Silva can't beat number 4 in the world, Yair Rodriguez? I think he can. I absolutely think he can. I mean, he trains with Mauricio Hufi every day. Like, I think he'll be more than well suited to take on Yair Rodriguez. I wouldn't mind seeing that fight. I think Gene is that skilled. So yeah, I'm excited for what's next for him. And for Bryce Mitchell, you know, the NFC is not interested at this time. So Dominic Reyes got back on track in an emphatic fashion, you know, knockout 2 minutes and 24 seconds into round 1. And kind of like what we were talking about, that Nikita Krylov is a wild man. And I was talking about on the show last week how he has a karate style, but you're used to karate guys running away from you. Now, Nikita Krylov runs, but he runs right at you. And that's where he was able to get countered right away, just ran into something and took a brutal knockout loss. And you just got to feel so happy for Reyes, the confidence that he's got now, knowing that, hey, you're back, 3 back-to-back destructive, brutal finishes. And you love to see a good comeback story. So I'm excited to see what they do with him next. You know, he's never fought Rakic before. Has Reyes fought Rakic before? I don't think Reyes has fought Rakic before. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong about that. Yeah, Reyes has never fought Rakic before. I think. Why not? Yeah, that or Reyes versus Jamal or Khalil. Whoever wins or loses between Jamal and Khalil, I'm down with both those fights. So yeah, let's set something like that up. Now, Dan Ige and Sean Woodson, I was wrong about this fight, but I want to say something. So I wanted to bet Sean Woodson. I picked Sean Woodson. However, I never got the price I wanted, so I passed. That's why it's so important to get the best of the number. Now, someone might be looking at me being like, bro, just pick winners. If you would have taken Sean Woodson at the best possible price, you still would have lost. Yes, I still would have lost, but I would have saved more than if I had bet him at his, you know, at the odds he was actually at, right? And all that adds up over time. Now you do that with the wins, right? Let's say you bet Dan Ige at, you know, plus 170. I don't even know if he hit that, but let's just hypothetically say he was 170. And then he closes at plus 150. Hey, you did your job. But let's say you bet Sean Woodson Dan Ige plus 130 and he closes plus 150. You know, You missed out on 20 cents of profit there. So that's what I'm trying to say. Win or lose, always try to get the best of the number. And if you don't get the number you want, pass. It's that simple. You don't have to bet on every fight, guys. Now, as far as what's next for Dan Ige, keep testing out the up-and-coming prospects. That's the bottom line. Oh, yeah. What about John Silva? John Silva, Dan Ige. Let John Silva take out Dan Ige. I'm down with that, you know? And Sean Woodson, back to the drawing board. I know for a fact he'll be back. Virna Janjidoba and Yan Xiaonan. Yeah, you know, firstly, credit to Yan Xiaonan. You know, you're a blue belt and you survived 3 rounds on the mat with arguably one of the best black belts, not just in this division, but in the UFC. So Yan has now survived. She survived as a white belt against Mackenzie Dern, which earned her blue belt. And she survived against Virna Janjidoba, which, in my opinion, if you're a blue belt and you survive those kind of spots with Virna, hey, you earned your purple belt, girl. And although she didn't get the dub, Yan Xiaonan, the massive improvement she's made compared to the Carla fight is just night and day, and I love to see it. And I still haven't given up on her, so I can't wait to see what she does next. And for Virna, congrats, girl. You earned your title shot. Virna Janjidoba versus Zhang Wei Li coming to a theater near you soon. So, yeah, I think that's the fight to make. Chase Hooper went out there, handled a legend, you know, 8 takedowns. He didn't get to sub him, but, you know, he went out there, did what he was supposed to do. And, yeah, just keep moving Chase Hooper up. Who's the next kind of – hey, let me ask y'all something. What do y'all think about Chase Hooper versus Michael Chandler? Michael Chandler's 2-5 in the UFC. Chase Hooper's on a little run. You know, you give Michael Chandler a step down in competition, and you give Chase Hooper a step up in competition. So I like that. And then for Jim Miller, keep doing your thing, man. You're a legend. I'll always watch a Jim Miller fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, even in a loss, he doesn't seem like he's dramatically slowing down. You know, it's all matchup dependent for Jim Miller. Julian Erosa and Darren Elkins. Erosa did exactly what he was supposed to do. As a big favorite, you go out there and you handle, you know, the kind of old, decrepit 40-year-old vet, and that's exactly what he did. So, Julian Erosa, good for you. Now, what I was really happy about was seeing Mikhail Oleksiejczuk go out there and get that first-round stoppage over Cedric Dumas. You know, Mikhail Oleksiejczuk badly needed a change of surroundings, and that's exactly what he did. You know, this guy was training out of a shack in Poland, and he was still competing at the UFC level, doing his thing, man. But he really needed a change and to evolve, and he goes to the Fighting Nerds as a guy from Poland. You know, there's a gym in Brazil, and not only that, but the courage to go in there when, you know, one of the main captains on the team is Caio Borraio, who you fought before, who beat you. And now you're like, hey, I want to train under you. I want you to be my mentor. Like, yeah, that's the kind of maturity I'm looking for from McCall, especially considering he's still young. And I really liked how measured he was. Normally, McCall is a marauder, goes forward, just, you know, zero, you know, no fucks given, right? And here he was measured. His distance was beautiful. I loved the defense. And when it was his time to pick his shots, boy, did he do that. He outstruck this man 34-3 in under 3 minutes. Like, damn, McCall. So yeah, let's see what he does next. Sumaderji and Mitch Raposo. Yo, I gotta ask y'all something. Real talk. Okay, let me pull these 2 Mitch Raposo fights, right? How does Mitch Raposo lose every round against Andre Lima and then still make it to a split decision? How does Mitch Raposo, like, I mean, lose pretty much every round against Sumudaerji? Maybe win 1 round if you want to be nice, and it's still a split decision. Like, what? Like what is the deal here? New England Cartel? Are there some legs to that name besides it sounding cool? Because how are all these Mitch Raposo fights he's clearly losing? How is one judge scoring it for him? I don't know. You tell me in the comments. So, the most confident man in the UFC, Marco Tulio, went out there and stopped former NFC champion Tresean Gore in the 2nd round. And man, they battled it out. Marco got rocked earlier, and it was almost like, oh yeah, you want to hit me like that? Well, now it's my turn, and boy, did he turn up on Gore. And I don't think I've seen a strike differential like this in a minute. On significance, it's 127-17, but on totals, it's 140-17. I mean, he pillar to post beat the shit out of Tresean Gore. But the thing people need to understand is that Marco Tulio is like 13-1. Tresean's like 5-3. Like Tresean came to the UFC at 3-0. He needs time to develop, guys. Like you can't just be putting him in here with some fucking 12-1, 13-1 absolute stud who is like a fight or two away from, testing for the top 15. So yeah. But it was very entertaining. Trey will be back, and Marco Tulio. I mean, dude, when your confidence is as sky high as it is, when you went on Contender Series twice and won twice, you've been in the UFC now, destroyed your first two opponents, and you get to come home to Norma Dumont. I mean, Marco Tulio, you're a god amongst men. So shout out to you. Tip my cap, my man. Parabéns, hermano. Now, last but not least, Nora Cornoli tapped out Haley Cowan. Hey, man, I thought Haley Cowan did pretty good that first round. Got that takedown, got some control, but, slowed down badly in the third. And that's when the roles got reversed. And it was Nora Cornoli taking that back and getting that submission. So good for her. So, guys, thank y'all so much for taking the time to check out the special early preview for UFC Kansas City, plus a little UFC 314 recap. I'm going to be back next week, as always, with a guest to really break down the Kansas City card in its entirety, in depth. I'll be fully researched by then, but just wanted to give y'all something. I know y'all are at work right now. You're bored. Don't let me get you fired, but wanted to give you all a little something to consume throughout the week. So I really appreciate that. Shout out to my contest winner. That's on my Twitter. I did the giveaway and we found a winner. So that's, I'm happy about that. Shout out to my boy Meticulous for the overlays, the thumbnails, the graphics, everything. You're amazing. I love you. And the fans, man, I cannot express my gratitude and just my sincere thank you to you guys for getting me to 7,000 subscribers and for making last week's episode of Half the Battle the most watched episode in 2025. So far, we still got big goals to reach. So I look forward to, to reaching them one day. And smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. Share if you feel so inclined. Leave me a comment. Hit me up on Twitter at Best Fight Picks, on Twitter at Half the Battle HQ, and on Instagram at Half the Battle Pod. And please subscribe to my TikTok at Half the Battle Podcast. I need to get my subscriber numbers up on TikTok badly so that they can pay me for my work and my boy Meticulous's work. So that'd be incredible if y'all could hook me up with that. So I look forward to speaking with y'all next week. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.